One of Aristotle's works is the Metaphysics. It's called that because it's placed right after another of his works called the Physics, meta meaning after. The Metaphysics has a famous first line, "All men by nature desire to know." Knowledge is valuable. It's why small people come here to Cambridge Nursery School. But what is knowledge, and why is it a good thing? These are the questions we'll be examining this week. The readings for this lecture are Plato's Meno and the Gettier paper, Is Justified True Belief Knowledge? Before getting to those, let me introduce a couple of natural ideas that might seem completely unconnected to the present topic. The first idea is that words can, at least typically, be defined. There are dictionaries, after all, where you can find the definitions of words. And if words can't be defined, how can we learn their meanings in the first place? The second natural idea is that the mind is in the head, in the following sense. If Jill and Jane have brains that are physically exactly alike, then Jill and Jane are psychologically exactly alike. The brain, we have learned, is the seat of the mind. That is why the mind is in the head. Now, what has all this got to do with our questions about knowledge? We will get to that later. Let me say a little bit more about each of these two natural ideas. Words can be defined first. This is François-Marie Arouet, also known as Voltaire, playwright, satirist, philosopher, an important figure in the French Enlightenment. He supposedly said, "If you wish to converse with me, define your terms." And that seems quite sensible. To proceed with an investigation without defining the relevant words is unscientific. Remember all that fuss we made about defining the word God. Voltaire, by the way, was a passionate advocate of freedom of speech. The quotation, "I may disagree with you, but I defend to the death your right to say it," is often attributed, incorrectly, as it turns out, to Voltaire. Some of Voltaire's books were actually publicly burned in France, an honour for any author. And Voltaire had an important influence on the American Revolution. He shared a hug and a kiss with Benjamin Franklin in Paris in 1778, the year Voltaire died. Turning to the second idea, the mind is in the head, that can seem obvious to anyone with a modicum of scientific knowledge. If asked to draw a picture of the mind and the world, you might draw something like this. Here's the world on the left, and here's the mind on the right. The brain is the seat of the mind. It is not, as Aristotle thought, an organ for cooling the blood. It's something like the computer on which psychological software is run. Two people with molecule for molecule identical brains, then, have identical mental lives. We are going to question both of these natural ideas. We won't question the second one until the next lecture, though. Plato's Meno. You read a short excerpt from that. The Meno is one of Plato's many dialogues, almost all of which feature Plato's teacher, Socrates. The official topic of the Meno is whether virtue can be taught. But in the excerpt you read, the issue is the nature of knowledge and its value. Let's say something about the various kinds of knowledge which are reflected in different ways in which we talk about knowledge. So here's the first kind factual or propositional knowledge. For example, Mallory knows that the Earth is round. What she knows is a fact that the Earth is round, or as philosophers say, a true proposition, the true proposition that the Earth is round. That is going to be our focus. Here's another way of talking about knowledge, which involves what linguists call indirect questions, like where coffee is grown. The corresponding direct question is, where is coffee grown? So Jinhe knows where coffee is grown. She also knows why Venus is hot, who Raphael Reif is, and so on. If you think about these examples, they seem to be cases of factual or propositional knowledge. So if Jinhe knows where coffee is grown, that must be because she knows, for example, that coffee is grown in Costa Rica. If she knows who Raphael Reif is, that must be because she knows, for example, that Raphael Reif is the president of MIT. Here's another way of talking about knowledge. Eliot knows how to play the bassoon. Now, every MIT graduate student knows that because Eliot had, when we were in the department, the extremely annoying habit of practicing the bassoon in his office. That's called practical knowledge or know-how. Practical knowledge seems to be different from factual or propositional knowledge. You might think that Eliot's practical knowledge of how to play the bassoon amounts to Eliot having a certain kind of musical ability, not just knowing a bunch of facts about the bassoon. Here's the last kind of knowledge. Abby has lived in Cambridge for a year or so she knows Cambridge. She is acquainted with that city. She also knows Jinhe, Eliot, Mallory, me. She doesn't know my cat Lola, though. She's never met her. Personal or acquaintance knowledge seems to be different from factual or propositional knowledge. Abby might know all sorts of facts about Lola without knowing her.